and welcome to Open Up and Say Ha! Stories from underneath the paper gown. Hi, Ellie. How you doing?
Hi, Julia, I'm good. How are
Hi.
you?
You know, living my life. What can I say?
That's all we can do is live
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Got any good stories from this week? Any good, like, weird stuff going on with your body or medical?
It's not mine, but I
Yes.
want to talk about somebody else.
I can't wait. Share. Tell
Okay.
me.
So I won't name her, but when a good friend of mine was pregnant
Mhm.
with her second child, there was some weirdness towards the end of the pregnancy. You know, they
Mhm.
scare the shit out of you. Oh, your amniotic fluid and
I mean, I
something
don't
showing
because
up.
I've never been. I mean, I've
You've
been
had
pregnant. I
friends,
had an
though.
abortion, but I have. Yes, yeah.
Yay.
Never carried a baby to term. Sorry, can't
Let's
help you
lead
there.
an episode with, well, I've had an abortion. I mean, you have.
I mean, I have. Yeah,
You have.
I have.
Okay. So they scare the shit out of you at every
Okay.
possible turn, especially if you're advanced maternal age. Oh my gosh, your amniotic fluid, there's some weird thing. What is it? Then they
Mhm.
have to figure out what it is. Basically, i- as far as they could tell, the baby was growing possibly an extra limb or something. Like it was like they were going to be,
What?
very irregular.
Okay.
It was a major concern up until the birth. Very
For
close to
sure.
the birth, it was like it might just be a sixth finger, which is not ideal, but not the worst thing in the world. You know, it's not like the kid's gonna die, God forbid. Anyway, when the baby was born, there was no sixth finger, but there was a teeny tiny little hint coming out of the side of the hand where a sixth finger might have developed. It was like a little bit of tissue, let's call it, right?
Uh-huh.
Nothing. So
Uh-huh.
they, in the first few days of the child's life, the standard practice, and this was about 10 years ago,
Okay.
was to like tie it off. They like tied a tight thing around it
Cut off the
to cut
blood.
off the
Let it
blood.
just like.
It's going to
Yeah.
fall off, right?
Hmm.
So, and that is what happened, and that is what was done. We've never heard from it since until now, when all of a sudden this poor child is like, my hand hurts, my hand hurts, my hand hurts. And the kid's almost 10,
Oh
9.
my
The kid's
God.
9. The kid's 9.
Oh my God.
And all this pain where the sixth finger would have been growing
Right.
out. So
Right.
basically, after some doctor's appointments, we have learned there's something called a nerve stub, and
Mm.
they have to go in and do
Kill
possible
them nerves. Kill
surgery
them
to
nerves.
kill the nerves that would have grown into what was a sixth finger. But so
Wow.
now, medical practices are constantly changing. So
Yeah.
now I guess if this were happening, they wouldn't have done the tie-off method. They would have done some sort of procedure, either, I guess, right after the baby was born or something. I don't
Yeah.
fully know.
Yeah.
All I know is I continue to learn about strange terms that I've never heard. Like, you think you heard it all. And nerve stub is something I've never heard. And like, for all the shit a parent has to deal with, now they're like this phantom finger that I tied off and like fell onto my floor one day. Because also when you have a new baby, you're like nursing, you're dealing, you're like
Sounds like a lot.
you're in a crazy, it's like a blur. So
Yeah.
I do recall this friend telling me like, oh, like looking at the baby's hand one day and being like, oh, the thing's not there anymore. And like having to like find on the floor this little tiny, it probably looked like a fingernail. I mean, you're making a face, but
No,
like,
but I'm sure it was a little. Yeah, I understand. I can imagine. I can
yeah, it
imagine.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
like a finger. It was like the tiniest little fleck of skin that was
I get
sticking off.
it.
Right.
Like
So,
a
but
skin
now,
tag.
like that, but now it's formed a nerve stube, and they got to deal with it. So
Wow.
that's my oddity for the week. Do you have anything?
That is so good.
Uh,
Not as exciting as that. This is just my own personal garbage, but like, so, if any listeners have listened to Circling the Drain, our previous podcast, you would know that I have ADHD. I am on Vyvanse for that. The way that I learned I had ADHD was that I took Wellbutrin for low libido. And the great side effect of that was that it began to control my ADHD. So then I got diagnosed and now I'm on ADHD medication. So I'm on a cocktail. I am on the Wellbutrin. I stayed on it because I felt better. And I was like, I'll just stay on this. I feel good. And then I added, the Vyvanse, and that keeps me pretty focused. So lately I've been having this issue where I'm getting PMDD, like really bad pre-PMS. Okay. So PMDD is premenstrual. I don't know, like
it's like
something
dysphoric disorder or
disorder,
something.
dysfunction. I don't remember.
Me
We don't
neither.
need to know. It doesn't matter.
No.
And I was talking to my shrink and I was like, look, I'm getting really bad like PMDD, which is but really the way that it surfaces with me is like rage. I get like really crazy rage. And when you're like a health coach and a Pilates instructor, this is not a cool vibe to have, like, when you're treating people.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like we might need to do something about this. And so she was like, well, we can put you on like a medication for this. And she was like, Zoloft, believe it or not, you can take intermittently. Like you don't have to take it every day to have
Oh,
effects. It's prescribed for PMTD, and you can just take it for like whatever, the 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever, before you get your period, and then like stop taking it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, like I'm already on meds. Let's like give it a try and, see what happens. So I gave that a try. Ellie, no, just no.
what
Okay, here's
happened?
what happened.
What
Here's what
happened?
happened. What happened? So I started sweating profusely. I was having just a long hot flash, like all day, sweating profusely. Um, repetitive and intense diarrhea.
Great.
Great, all the fun things. And then anxiety went from like -1 to like 10 plus.
Ah,
Yeah. And I was like, this is great. This is really doing its job. This was one day, right? And I was like, well, we know that this is now a no.
no.
And I'm reading through the side effects. So here we go. Like, listen, she did tell me, she was like, this is what could happen. This, but this is like very unlikely, whatever. I should have known. Like, you know me.
You get the things.
If
If there's a thing to
anxiety is a
get, you
side
get the
effect, I
thing.
will get the thing.
Same.
And so yeah, I'm reading on, of course, I go to Reddit, because where else would you go? I go to Reddit, and everyone's like, yeah, like it can be like that in the beginning, but then like your body gets used to it. And I'm like, but I'm taking it intermittently. There's no getting used to it. If I have to do this every single month,
What's the point?
fuck no, what's the fucking point? I was like, no, look,
No.
and this is to say that I know that this drug changes people's lives, and they have, there's a reason why it's out there and people do really well on it. I am not one of those people. So I will just, manage my
Power.
rage in a different way, and I will just deal with it. And I look forward to a day when I don't get my period anymore and I don't have to deal with it. But
This is when I
sucked
wish we could
real
just bring
bad.
back the red tent, just put you in the red tent for those 3 days,
The red tent. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the red tent. Put me in the red tent. Terrible thing
Julie,
to say during these life and times. That's all I'm saying.
I know,
Probably
I
not
know.
the right thing to say right
Maybe
now.
like a pink tent. Like it would be a different tent. A tent, a she, what do they call it?
A shut? We'll
A
say
she shack, a
a
she
she
shack.
shack? I was going
You
to
need
say
a she shack.
a shut, but that's not as
Like
good.
I'm going to be in my
I'm
she
going to be
shack.
in my she shack.
I'll be meditating. I'll be Netflixing. I'll be
No,
watching.
but you
I'll
know
be,
what? This is why women are so strong. Can I just say? Because like we have to manage all of this shit and like
yeah,
still go about our lives. And that's also to say, I took that drug. I did it on a Saturday because I was like, I want to do it when I don't have to do anything or be
sure.
anywhere in case I have a bad reaction. So I did the right thing in that respect. But it still took like 24 hours to get completely out of my system. And I teach Pilates on Sunday mornings from 9 a.m. to 1. That first class was a roller coaster. And it took all of my control and composure as a functioning human being to like keep my shit together, because my anxiety was just like cuckoo crazy at that moment. And then it like wore off and I was a perfectly like fine human being, but like
Right. You had
fuck
to
all
use all
that.
your acting skills.
I'd use all my acting skills. We thought that going to school for acting was a waste, but it actually came into play.
Well, how excellent.
I know every once in a while it's helpful.
Well, speaking of strong women, can I tell you who we have on today's pod?
I mean, you should.
I'm going to.
Great.
Ophira Eisenberg is a Canadian-born stand-up comedian, writer, and host. She hosted NPR's comedy trivia show Ask Me Another, where she interviewed and played silly games with hundreds of celebrities for 9 years.
Love that one. It's a good one.
As a comic and a parent to an elementary school kid, Ophira is the host of the comedy podcast Parenting is a Joke. It's so good.
So good.
Where she talks to other comedian parents about how the hell they do it.
Mhm.
Ophira is a regular host and teller with The Moth, and her stories have been featured on The Moth Radio Hour and in 2 of The Moth's best-selling collections, including the New York Times bestseller, How to Tell a Story, the essential guide to memorable storytelling from The Moth. We had Ophira on our last podcast, Circling the Drain. We're so excited to hear her intriguing medical stories. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
Hi, Ophira.
Hi.
Hello. Good morning. I have my coffee. I'm still drinking my coffee.
Oh, I've already done 2 mugs.
I mean, this is mug number 2, but it's like cold and sad and,
Yep, I like it when it's cold, you can drink it faster.
it's true. It's true. It's like, I don't need water. I've got cold coffee.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
hydrating.
I always
yes,
drink mine cold. I don't even drink hot coffee.
we
Do you drink
all,
it cold or iced?
No,
Is that the
iced, always
difference?
iced. In fact, I'm
uh,
running out and I'm
Uh,
sad I didn't make another one.
yeah.
but you see, iced is on purpose. Mine just like got tepid and then
Oh
it
yeah.
got cold. And
Yeah.
I'm still like, I'm not going to do anything to make this any different
No.
Nope,
than it
me
Too
is.
much
neither.
work. Too much work.
Right. It's been here since like 6 in the morning. Who knows
Perfect.
what's in it at this point? Um, anyway, Ophira, before we get into your story or stories, I know that you have had a lot of medical experiences in your life. You've even had a one
Yeah.
person show about it. Um, when it comes to real live medical situations, what kind of a patient are you?
I have been both. I think the more, I mean, and by that I mean both is either good or bad, I guess. Or but now because as it has piled up, I am suspicious. That's the patient
Mm.
I am. I'm suspicious. I have to get in my mind to not be, I guess, you have to be really nice to people to get them
Yeah.
to do things for you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
So I was really defensive for a while, and that just does not work. It's like customer service. It is
Yeah.
exactly like customer service. The more you present like I'm going to be difficult, even medical professionals aren't like, well, I'm just going to soften it up and make this easy for you. You get
Yeah.
what you give.
It's
But I'm pretty
treading
skeptical.
that line of assertion, right? Treading the line of like being assertive with like out being an ass without being an asshole.
Yeah. And at a certain point, too, in your medical history, if you've been through a lot and you go through an intake with any new person, it is exhausting because you come from a place where you just happen to know more about them. I mean, maybe everyone walks in going, I know more about what's going on with me than you do. But I think there's this feeling like you're the experts, I know stuff, but then that will change
Mhm.
and I get really frustrated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I
Understandable.
I've been unkind.
Yeah.
A little snippy.
Well,
I think I've been snippy.
there's like my GP's office that I go to now. I like my GP a lot, but I don't get to see her very often because they usually put me with the physician's assistant or the NP.
Yes.
And lately, they've been going through nurse practitioners like Kleenex. So I never know. So I'm like, I get rapport and I'm all
Can't
set with
stand
this
that.
one NP who I really like. And then she disappears. And listen, if they're coming and going, guess whose fault that is? Not theirs.
That's
You know what I'm saying?
correct.
So I'm just like, what are you doing to these people? Unless there's a program that I'm not aware of. You know what I'm saying? Like they just get people in and like that's what they do.
It's like
But
your
like,
internship.
I don't know, like but you get all like comfortable with somebody, and then you get a new person. Then you got to sit down and explain to them that you've had ulcerative proctitis since you were 17, and yes, you indeed have had a colonoscopy. And I know that I'm over 45, but I do not need one because I've had like 30.
Right. Well, that's another thing is like I often say, I use these words all the time. I say, um, is this something I have to get or is it recommended? I say
Mm.
that all the time. Are you
That's a
saying
good
that
phrase.
Yeah.
mandatory or recommended? Mandatory, recommended. Usually they bring in someone else when you ask those questions. They're like, all right. But and also to that point, things are, everyone's on a different computer system now. No one is, very rarely are people writing down pen and paper. I
Mm-hmm.
happen to go to a GP that still works in that, and that's his mind, and I love it. But most of the time, you're dealing with a medical practitioner, nurse practitioner who's entering things into an application that I am assuming there's a bazillion different companies selling these medical applications. So they're all different. And recently, when I was talking to a doctor and they told, or sorry, nurse practitioner putting in my intake, and they said, okay, prior surgeries, and they're on their little keyboard ready to go. And I'm listing mine off. And they said to me, well, I don't really see these in the drop down menus. So where do you think I should put them? And I was like, notes?
You're like, why are you asking me?
Why are
But
you
also,
asking me? And why weren't they in there already?
yeah, well, there's nothing in there
Oh,
already. There's never,
oh,
never.
there
But
never is.
then you just go, oh, this is how it all starts falling apart,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because there's an
Yes.
automated thing these people have to pick drop down menus from that hasn't been populated to every individual, and then there's no
Sure.
other space, and you're just like, oh, cool.
I love that you had a suggestion though. Notes.
Notes?
Notes.
Is there a notes?
That's a
Uh,
great suggestion.
The other thing too is that often they have to select your surgery or your illness from a drop down menu, and there's no option to like put it in manually. And so they'll be like, I don't really know what to call. I've had them do this. I don't really know what to call that. We're just going to call it this, and I'll just put it in as that. And I'm just
I
like,
know.
But
You're
it's
like,
not that.
is that what you want to do here right
okay.
now? Yeah. This is maybe, I find this hilarious, but it's kind of dark. My mother, who has since passed away, but she and I were at an appointment for her, and she was in pretty good health near the end. But we were at an appointment with a new doctor. You know, she was almost 90, and she had some health issues. Very good spirited woman, and the young nurse practitioner said, "Oh, is the standard questions, right? Is there any cancer running in your family?" And my mom goes, "Oh yeah," and they go, "Oh, okay, ready to type. Which one?" And my mother goes, "All of them."
Good for her.
Every
Everyone
single one you can think
riddled
of.
with cancer.
There should be
Riddled.
an option from the drop down menu that just says this, or all.
All of
All,
them.
Check
all
the
of the
box.
above.
All of
Yeah,
the above. Yeah. Ophira, you have a
yeah.
story for us today. What's the title?
I'm gonna call it a Radiology 101. Okay,
Let's hear it.
so on top of many other things, I also, when I was 40, I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. And yeah, so the way they treat early stage breast cancer is very similar to the way they treat all breast cancers. You have a choice between, well, I guess I had a choice, so that maybe says something. I had a choice between a double mastectomy, which would have been, in my mind, overkill, because basically they found some fuzzy cells in one of my breasts, and that is considered something that they want to basically take out.
Mm.
So, but then they go, hey, if you don't want to do potential chemo, drugs, or radiation, you can just do a double mastectomy, and then you never have to think about it again. But from my point of view, that is a lot of tissue that we're just throwing out there,
Just slicing right off.
slicing right off. What do
Tits
we
in the
do?
trash. Trash tits.
Tits in the trash. Trash.
It's in the trash.
tits.
And now I've actually, just if anyone knows, now I realize that there are some surgeons that believe in something called breast preservation who strongly disagree with
Yes.
that
Yep.
point of view of looking at breast cancer.
Okay.
Strongly disagree. But if you go to a very
Mhm.
conservative place like I did, Sloan Kettering, they will. But I found a surgeon that was like, no, 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 let's do a lumpectomy, and then after that we'll talk about radiation, absolutely, and then after that we'll talk about medication. So, what can I say? It was a terrible experience. The whole
Sounds
thing was
great.
terrible. Surgery was brutal. I had to get 2 surgeries because the first one was not was effective, but then they thought they saw more with these incredible diagnostic machines. When you get, just as a little extra tidbit, when you get a lumpectomy, which is the kind I had where you don't feel a lump, it's at a tissue level that is more seen on a mammogram. How do you think they market? Any ideas? Because they
Oh, I
can't
can't
do it with a
wait.
pan.
No, can't wait.
Because when you get, like, I don't know if you've ever had a broken bone or any kind of surgery where they put an X on, it's very demoralizing, but they put a
Yeah.
X.
They're like, this one is the one. When I
Yeah.
tore my ACL, they were like, they circled my knee or like put an X, and they asked me 10 times before I went under, which leg are we doing surgery on? I'd be like, left.
Yeah, because
Left.
there's a huge statistic of wrong limb, wrong side surgeries. So now they
Okay.
Sharpie you.
Can you imagine?
But they can't do that in this case. So what they do is that they they look at your mammogram and insert wires into the depth of your soul to mark the position of these. And for some reason that I never got to the bottom to, you can't be out. You have to be completely conscious.
Is there local anesthetics?
Nope.
Nothing.
I do not understand that. Let me explain something to you. And this is in the media. There's a lot of talk about this on Instagram. And as everyone knows, or probably knows, we used to have a podcast called Circling the Drain about, medical issues, women, all that. And it is really interesting to me that this is a thing that women are often, our pain is not taken seriously. We're expected to tolerate pain. Like with IUDs, they don't give you any kind of anesthetic when you get an IUD. I've heard the same kind of thing with this. It's like, why would they not give you something? At least give me a Valium.
So they offered me a Xanax, which, I know is like a fun party drug for some. But I've never taken one before. It's really to reduce anxiety.
Yeah,
It's
it just
not
takes
any
the
kind
edge
of
off your anxiety.
sedative. And I took it unwillingly, but I was pretty worked up about the whole thing, and I took it
Yeah.
unwillingly. And all it did not. It was the most pain I've ever felt. I passed out, and they had to like literally slap me awake because I couldn't be limp
Shit,
for this.
Ophira.
I am going to delve so deep into this after this episode and find out why the fuck you have to be awake, because that makes
It's,
no sense to me.
because it's also you almost have to stay still so they can get it right.
This is sadistic. They shoved a wire in your tit and then slapped you
wires.
away.
2 wires, and then we're
I
like, stay
I've
awake.
never heard of this, and I am aghast. Continue.
Yeah, so all the Xanax did for me was remove, and maybe this is common, it removed the filter in my brain between all the things I want to say and what I would stop from coming out of my mouth.
Nice.
And I had no anxiety about literally just yelling and screaming at these people the entire time.
Do you remember
which-
some of the things you said?
Yeah, please.
No idea. Because I was
Okay.
also in so much pain, I was passing. Like my
Yeah,
body just
yeah.
went no more.
Oh, my
off.
love. Okay.
Yeah. And then they wheel you into surgery. So that once this was done, let's just say, then I had to go through a month of radiation, daily radiation, which that's pretty low key. But in terms of invasiveness, you don't feel anything with radiation. It's just the whole procedure of going there every day. You're in rooms of people who are all in different stages, so they're just the heaviness of these
Yeah.
waiting areas. Yeah, you don't know if you're at a place of healing or a morgue. It's just
Sure.
Yeah.
wild. And then when you're done, that you have to see someone like about a month later just to kind of do. So let's just say I was, when we're talking what kind of patient are you at the beginning, let's just say by the end of that, I was a terrible patient.
For
I
good reason.
hated these people. I hated them. I thought they tortured me. I thought they were sadistic, brutal money makers. And I felt like a number in a factory that was being
Mm,
rolled through.
No good.
I hated all of it.
yeah.
I hated Sloan Kettering, and many more of these hospitals are very intent on this sort of soothing generic decor. They have photo frames that have like nature photos based on seasons, and I'd seen them all, and I fucking
You hated the
leaves.
seasons.
I hated all of them. I
Sorry.
hated them.
Ah.
So okay, so much like you said at the beginning, I had a very good radiologist. Supposedly he was a top guy, but when I went in that day, I did not get to see that top guy because that top guy had to deal with people that were I'm assuming worse off than me, or perhaps he was in Key West. I don't know.
You'll never know.
But you'll never know. But so I had one of his students, right? One of these these people are there moving up the ranks. So I walk in, and of course, I bared my upper torso, my breast to a lot of people at that point. But it feels crappy every time. Every time it
Mhm.
feels exposed. Every time you just want to be in that thing where can I like reclaim this part of my body for me and stop with just it being poked like a piece of old Play-Doh. So go in. It's a young guy. He's very smiley. He's goofy. Which was unlike I would say how I would describe many of the other people that worked there. They just, of all the descriptions, I would say, maybe they were smiley, or maybe they were trying to be warm, or maybe they were stern, or just professional. This guy was goofy, like should work with children. And he, had to, he was mostly, because he's in radiology, so they're not looking at anything anymore, except for they're looking at the skin. They're looking how the skin responded, because it's very intense on the skin. So they're looking at the skin, and he's looking at it, and he just keeps going, "This is great. It's great. Oh, so good. You did such a good job. You did
Oh.
such a good job." And, I did buy this cream online that was for preserving your skin, especially
Yeah.
for radiation. And so I was like, well, I'm always like that. I'm like, well, I took it into my own hands, and I researched this thing, and I bought this cream. And he's like, well, did a great job. Your skin looks great. Your skin looks great. And he's looking at my file, and he's reading my file, and he's looking at my skin, and he's like, yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And then he just goes, well, now you're going to live forever.
Oh.
And I was like, it just coming from where I was coming from, I was just like, excuse me? And he's like,
Yeah.
he goes, yeah, your skin looks great. You're done with everything. And you know what? Now you're going to live forever. And I was so like, what the, how dare you?
Fuck.
How
Yes.
dare you? Like, how, after what I've been through, and that is, first of all, it's just like bullshit. And why are you saying that? And I'm not a child, and this isn't unicorn fantasy radiology world. And, nobody lives forever. And we don't, like, if anything,
What
I've
an
learned from this.
irresponsible thing to say.
Yeah,
Right.
I literally was like, should I record this? Because I guess I could start some sort of random suit on
Yeah.
you
Like,
if I was litigious.
because the breast cancer might not get you, but you could like get hit by a bus tomorrow.
There's always getting hit by a bus.
But
It's
your
New York.
your
It's New
tissue would
York,
have
but
looked
your
really
tissue-
beautiful when they examined your dead
gorgeous.
body.
But also it's just sort of like, yeah, no one gives you any assurances, but all of a sudden, and I don't know why this guy was saying, I mean, like, I do think within this Sloan Kettering world, like, that is also just, they're very concerned and professional, and they take a pretty intense approach to everything. That's sort of their general philosophy.
Yeah.
So that guy, like, did not
Out of
belong
place.
in
Out of
that
place.
world. And I was mad at him, but I was also so dying to hear something like that. I was so thirsty for
Yes.
anyone to say anything hopeful
Yeah.
other than just like a pile of statistics, like, well, now you have a 16% chance of reoccurrence. Well, like, just the idea of someone looking at you in the medical field at all in America, I will say, I can't really compare it right now, and going, it's great.
Yeah.
This is great. You've done great. And from my point of view, you're going to live forever. Because in a way, I think that's was the context. It
Sure.
wasn't, it was like, if you get another day on this dumb planet, from a medical point of view, that is forever.
Right.
I wonder if he was so uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? If that had something to do with it, or if he was working on if he was a younger person kind of coming up the ranks, like you said, I wonder if he was like working on his, we all have like our phrasing that we want to keep using as a coach. I have phrasing that I try to keep in mind if I might need in a moment. And he was kind of there, but it needs to be polished. It's
Maybe.
not quite there.
Yeah, it seemed a little first day.
Little first day.
That's what I thought. I was like, you've seen like 12 patients.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you haven't figured this out. You're like, this could be your first morning. They're like, guess what? Everyone called in sick. So, Philip, you're on rounds. And he was just like, okay, all right. Yeah, I'm into it.
Send the awkward guy.
The GP office that I go to, there are often students or like, physician's assistants or just out of school. And one day I got someone and, like the nurse came in and was like, John's going to come in first. He's kind of still studying. He's going to give you your preliminary examination. Then we'll come in. And I was like, okay, like what choice do I have? I guess I could have said, I don't have time for John. I'm not in the mood for John. Let John look at somebody else. But I was feeling like, okay, great. And I've told Julia this. John came in, took my intake and then was like, here's your gown. I'll step out for a few minutes, as they do. Came back in and I had the gown on. And he walked in and he looked at me and he said, wow, that actually looks good on you.
Oh my God.
That's so wrong. Like, it's not the same, Ophira. I hadn't been through cancer, but it's like, you don't know whether to be grateful for the compliment or horrified at the gross, like, inappropriateness of that. And I didn't feel like he was like trying to fuck me or anything. He just seemed so green, like he hadn't practiced his
Right.
words yet. That actually looks good on you.
Or
What
he
great.
had a bunch of people really just freak out on him. I mean, I do think like what, I am very into good bedside manner. And I think in New York, there's this idea that if you, especially for women, like we talked about it, women just like assuming we should be able to take like extreme pain with zero comfort. But also, I think there's this idea that people like women in New York are like tough and gritty and they are like working and they're career people and they just like it tell me how it is. And I'm always like, do not tell me how it is.
Yeah.
Like soft, personable. I even went to see a dermatologist. I have to get my skin checked all the time because guess what? All in my family, you know what runs in my family? All the cancer.
All the cancer.
All of them.
All of
And
them.
so, and I had a dermatologist that I'd never seen before, like ask me zero questions. Like not even what I do, and I was just like, okay, we're out. You're here. You're a business person. I get it because there's that side of it too. But I like someone that gets in there.
Yeah.
I like someone that gets in there with you.
Not all people are for all people. Is that a saying? Not everyone. I don't know.
Not whatever. The vibe. I get the vibe. Yes.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
realize dermatologists in New York are mostly there to do Botox and filler, but
I didn't know that until like I have psoriasis, so I go on a regular basis. And one time I went and there was like videos on the computer screen about Botox and filler. And then they came in and were talking to me about Botox and filler. This is like a change in the past few years.
oh
And
yeah,
Mhm.
more power to whoever wants Botox and filler. But I was there for like my medical issue, not,
Yep.
yeah.
I
He's
feel like
making
I feel
so
like you
much
should
money.
ask first before they then switch to that, right?
yeah,
They
no,
shouldn't just offer it to you.
It's just so much money. But also on your thing about like this guy, medical
The
student or
Diane
whatever.
von Furstenberg wrap dress that I was
Yeah,
suddenly
just being
in.
like,
That was
wow,
super hot.
fantastic.
Uh-huh.
When I first went to see my OBGYN, she's in a practice with 4 different OBGYNs. And
Mhm.
because, babies
That's my
are,
dryer, everyone. I don't know if you can hear that. My buzzer on my
oh, I
dryer.
can't
No.
hear it.
No.
I'm
Oh,
glad,
thank
I'm
God.
glad you have
Okay.
a dryer.
Yeah.
Just because, these practices, especially with babies, they can't tell who's going to be there when you go into labor.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they have a few different people.
So you meet everybody.
So you meet everybody. And one woman I did not like because also, I got pregnant after this whole breast cancer radiology. So I was still on pretty high alert. And I picked my OBGYN because she was like such and is such a sweet, warm, easy to talk to doctor. I just loved her. But she had a Eastern European colleague who was a terrific doctor, but did not have a great bedside manner and
Mhm.
was pretty just like no filter, harsh, I felt. And I was so sensitive at the time because I was pretty like this was pretty much on the heels of that whole cancer radiology, everything. I was still healing mentally and I had to see her and I prepared a speech because I have these huge scars. I've got scars on my stomach. I've got the scars from the breast cancer. I've got these scars. And I said to her, listen, I'm going to get undressed. And I'm very early pregnant. You're going to see a lot of scars. I am just, I've been through this. I've been through that. I'm feeling very sensitive about it all right now. So if you could just keep that in mind as you examine me. Okay. And let me tell you, from a patient vulnerability and just get assertion point of view, it was so challenging for me to get myself to even say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she leaves. I put on the robe. She comes back in. She opens up my the front of it and literally goes, "Oh my God, life really ripped you up, didn't it?"
The fuck?
The fuck?
It's
What
like,
the fuck?
what? Did I not just? And could I not be a top 10 on anyone's like interest list? Medically, my goal is to be like a total uninteresting case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is my
Yeah.
goal.
You
All I
don't
wanna
want to be,
is
we've never
uninteresting.
seen this before.
No, and from
We
that
don't know.
perspective,
It's not on the drop down menu.
it's
I've
like
had that so many times. It's like the 1%. I
just
would like a
like
different 1%.
ignore altogether or say something nice.
Yeah.
Ignore altogether or say something nice.
But
It's
you
very
had
easy.
prepared this bitch. You
I
had laid your
prepared her.
heart on the table and said, I feel sensitive. And she was like, look at
Oh
you.
my
Yeah,
God.
I know. She could have been thinking about her lunch. I don't know.
She wasn't listening and she sucks. And I
Yeah.
hate her just like
I
you
hate
hate
her.
leaves. She's
And
as
sh-
bad as leaves.
And guess what? She was the one that
Who
delivered my
delivered your
baby.
Oh my
baby?
God. Oh, the
no.
irony. Life.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So she
Oh
did a
my
good.
goodness.
She did a good job on that end.
Good. I'm glad. She
Thank
didn't at any
goodness.
point during the birth make you feel like
She
an
didn't go, oh
asshole?
my God, when she like opened up
I
the
will say
gown.
this. No, all I remember is that my friend Emily Flake wrote this very funny book about having a kid, and at one point she hears two people in the background after her delivery saying, like two medical people just saying, that was one old dried up placenta, and it really stuck in her. And so, and I found out about this later, but it's somewhat common to have a dried up placenta. It has nothing to do with age or anything. It's a possibility.
It's just a
Okay?
medical thing that might happen.
It's just a medical
There's
thing
no,
that might happen.
yeah.
There's no real correlation, and it's not even dangerous because at that point you're delivering your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for whatever reason, when she told me that, not knowing the rest of it, I assumed it had to do with age,
Mhm.
and I was pregnant much older than she was, and much older than a lot of my friends. So in a state of delirium after I delivered, I did say to that OBGYN, was my placenta all old and dried up? And she held it up in the little bin they put it in, like it was a big red bloody hammerhead squid, and just went, no, it's beautiful.
That's what
And in
she's
that moment,
into.
she made up for all of it. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not into your scars, but your placenta.
Yeah.
Mwah,
Gorgeous.
chef's kiss.
And she was like, do you want to take that home? And I was like, no, it's for you. It's my gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you Googled what people do with their
You wanna-
placentas? Have you ever
I
gone down
know.
that
yeah.
road?
I've heard stories.
Cook it up and eat it.
I know people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people have like babies who are like walking, who are still like attached to it. I feel like it's the wildest thing.
Oh, this is for another episode.
No judgment. Judgment. I'm
Yeah,
judging.
I'm
I
judging.
know-
Judging
supposedly
so hard.
someone got in trouble for burying burying one of theirs under a tree in Prospect Park because human remains. as
Yeah,
it
that's
turns
not
out.
your park.
Right.
It's not your backyard, people. It's a
But
public place.
it's a nice steak for the squirrels.
Oh, they
That's-
were excited. The rats were like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
Yeah.
That's the source of the rat problem is
Yeah.
the placenta in Prospect Park.
Well,
Somebody
and the
write
old
Eric
ones-
Adams. Let him know.
Yeah, the old rats that look really young.
Yeah.
It's those ones.
Right. They've been rejuvenated by the juicy placenta, not the
That's
dried
right.
up placenta.
Because there's more. If one person did it, somebody was like, where I put mine.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
I think Prospect Park is on top of hundreds of placentas.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Ophira's family is riddled with cancer. Prospect Park is riddled with placentae.
Placenta?
Placentae?
Placentas.
Placentas.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah,
just
I don't know.
placentas. This took a turn. It always often does. I don't know. When you get medical, it gets super weird.
But I was here for the ride. I enjoyed.
I loved.
Yeah.
Ophira, I love everything that comes out of you, including
Oh,
your
that's nice.
wet, juicy,
Bloody,
beautiful placenta.
Bloody.
gorgeous.
Please tell our listeners where they can find your podcast as well as the best place for your upcoming show dates, all your shit.
Right.
Just pour your shit on us.
Oh, thanks. I'm touring like crazy, so I'm leaving my family behind and coming to you. Right. So, anyways, I am literally going to be touring for the next few months. So my website is ophiraeisenberg.com. You can follow me on the socials at Ophira E. And I have a podcast called Parenting is a Joke that you can listen to, as they say, wherever you get podcasts.
And it's good, people. It's good. It's a good time.
Oh, thanks.
And-
yeah, we try not to teach anything. Just fun.
No, you learn.
If you
nothing.
didn't, if you weren't able to write all that down, it's not a problem because we're going to put it in the show notes.
So smart.
Yeah.
Thank
All right,
you,
thanks,
Ophira.
Ophira.